Well, if you keep on that sauce, you won't be much use to me.
Mr. Buckman, we are gentlemen who pleasure ourselves in drinking as we see fit.
Hello to all the classic people that are returning. I'm glad you are back. I want to welcome any new visitors. Today on Classic Movie Review Podcast, we are taking on the wonderfully bad movie Hellfighters, 1968. This is another macho John Wayne film where he has an estranged wife, proving that no woman could put up with that much macho BS. But it's a heck of a lot of fun as the overaged, overweight crew is gathered for another adventure. This movie is rated 6.6 on IMDb.com, which is pretty low and just about right for the artistic merit and quality of acting. Did I mention it's fun? On RottenTomatoes.com, this film is at 14% on the tomato meter and 75% audience approval, which backs up what I said earlier. The great film critic Roger Ebert said, quote, "It is a slow-moving, talkative, badly plotted bore, and most of the action consists of everybody standing around telling the women that they don't belong in a place like this. My theory is you should either leave women out of action pictures or give them something to do." Unquote. Ouch. Catherine Ross was asked about the film and said, quote, "It's the biggest piece of crap I've ever done." Unquote. Vera Miles was then asked to respond to Ross's comments. After a pause, she said, quote, "Well, it's not the biggest piece of crap I've ever done." Unquote. The film was directed by Andrew McLaglen, the same guy that directed The Green Beret. So take what you want from that. Red Adair, the famous oil well fighter, served as a technical advisor for the film. Adair had been fighting oil well fires since he left an Army bomb disposal unit during World War II. So let's jump on into the team of actors.
Right, and I'm a Shakespearean actor.
John Wayne played macho firefighter Chance Buckman. You see what they did there? Take a chance. The Duke was first covered in the Western Chisholm, 1970. Jim Hutton played Greg Parker, the young heir apparent to the Buckman Empire. Hutton was covered in the John Wayne adventure The Green Berets, 1968. Vera Miles played Madeline Buckman, but as said by Ebert, she didn't have much to do in this film. She was first covered in the great Western The Man Who Shot Liberty Valance, 1962. J.C. Flippin, now confined to a wheelchair, played the role of Jack Lomax, a man yearning for earlier times. He was one of the bad guys in Cat Ballou, 1965. Bruce Cabot huffed and puffed along as Joe Horn, one of the firefighters. Cabot was covered in the very first episode, King Kong, 1933, back when he was an A-list actor. Edward Faulkner played George Harris, another Buckman employee and helicopter pilot. He is another The Green Berets, 1968 veteran. Valentin de Vargas played Emil Bakru, an oilman from Malaysia. It was odd to not see him playing a criminal or juvenile delinquent. He was first covered in Blackboard Jungle, 1955. Catherine Ross played the role of Tish Buckman, daughter of Chance and Madeline Buckman, and eventually wife to Greg Parker. Ross was born in Hollywood in 1940. You can't get much closer than that. Her father was in the Navy, so the family moved around a lot, but finally settled near San Francisco. Ross graduated high school in 1957 and attended Diablo Valley College, where she began acting. Ross began studying at the Actors Workshop and seeking roles. She got work right away in television, but her first big film role came with Patrick Wayne and Jimmy Stewart in the Civil War tragedy Shenandoah, 1965. In 1967, she was in a kinky movie with James Caan, Games, 1967, and The Graduate, 1967, with Dustin Hoffman, which does not have a happy ending. Next, she was in Hellfighters, 1968, with John Wayne, and had a major role in Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, 1969, with Robert Redford and Paul Newman. Ross received rave reviews for Tell Them Willie Boy Is Here, 1969. Then the roles kind of dried up. Her next quality film would be The Stepford Wives, 1975, where women are forced to conform. Then it was mostly television. She continued to work, at least through 2001, and now lives with her fifth husband, Sam Elliott. Yeah, the guy with the mustache. Barbara Stewart was Irene Foster. Stewart was born in 1930 in Illinois. After high school, Stewart attended Schuster Martin School of Drama in Ohio. She then moved to New York, where she modeled and studied under Stella Adler. She got a job in Zero Mostel's traveling show, which must have been a master class in comedy. She was primarily a television actress and worked in that medium for over 50 years. She is probably best known for Gomer Pyle, USMC, 1964 to 1969, where she played Bunny, Sergeant Vince Carter's girlfriend. Her first movie was a Cold War drama, I Led Three Lives, 1953. Other films include The Deep Six, 1958, Marines Let's Go, 1961, Hellfighters, 1968, Dreamers, 1979, Airplane, 1980, Bachelor Party, 1984, the must-see Pterodactyl Women from Beverly Hills, 1997, and A Family Affair, 2001. Stewart died in 2011. Story.
Let me explain. No, there is too much. Let me sum up.
Men are drilling on an oil derrick at night. They hear a rumbling in the ground, and one man yells that it's coming in wild. They are working hard to cap the flow when a man bumps an exposed light bulb with his hard hat. The whole rig explodes with fire, and at least 4 men are burning. The credits roll over the burning rig. The scene switches to a helicopter landing on the roof of the Buckman Company in Houston, Texas. George Harris, Edward Faulkner, leaves the aircraft. Inside the office, highly efficient secretary Irene Foster, Barbara Stewart, is having Chance Buckman's airplane diverted back to Houston. Harris says Happy New Year. A group of well-dressed people are on a mid-sized jet celebrating and gambling. Chance Buckman, John Wayne, is playing cards with Jack Lomax, J.C. Flippin, when he gets the call to come back. Lomax is in a wheelchair, and they say later he broke his back in an oil fire accident. In reality, he had his leg amputated around the ending of filming for Cat Ballou 1965. On a farm, Joe Horn, Bruce Cabot, gets a call on his truck phone. This means nothing now, but it was a big deal then to have a phone in your car. Some Latina switchboard operators take a call that is looking for Greg Parker, Jim Hutton, but he is out. Irene goes through a number of names until she finds the girl Greg is with. He gets the message and heads for Houston. He also invites the woman along, but she refuses. The well is burning when Buckman and crew arrive. Horn is operating a boom to remove metal. The other men are behind aluminum siding screens, on water trucks, and tractors with the same siding. A truck with explosives arrives, as does the helicopter carrying Greg and George. Greg has found another woman on the plane and he has brought her along. Man whore. Greg plays the danger up to the woman, who is transfixed by the fire. They begin ripping the rig apart, with Buckman always working in the front. Some explanation is given via an oil man talking to a reporter. Chance and Greg go into the fire to cut the pipes off the control head. This makes one single column of fire. Buckman's other people are working on getting the new wellhead ready. Greg goes to the trailer and the woman follows along. Chance and Joe pack the nitro in an asbestos-covered barrel. The new control head comes in, and under Buckman's guidance, Greg drives the tractor with the explosives into position. When everything is ready, they all run back and set off the explosion. It works. The fire goes out. The oil is spewing straight up, so Joe backs another tractor with the control head over the well. Buckman and Greg work in the spewing oil and bolt the control head in place. They then turn the valve and stop the oil. The overzealous reporter runs to ask Chance a question, and Chance is crushed by a tractor. They load Chance into an ambulance as he holds his chest. Greg punches the reporter before going to the hospital. The crew begins to show up at the hospital, and Chance has a punctured lung. Joe tells Lomax that Greg called Madeline and Tish.
Greg got the number from Irene and called San Francisco.
Madeline and Tish? They're not coming here.
Well, Madeline's in Europe, and the girl's skiing in Jackson, Wyoming. Greg flew up to get her.
Well, you couldn't stop them, eh?
No, I agreed with him.
The men are shocked that Chance's estranged wife and daughter may be coming. Greg is flown to pick up Tish, Catherine Ross. The lovely Tish is waiting with doe eyes when Greg arrives on the company plane. Greg has to convince her to come see the father that did not ask for her. Greg talks to Tish on the plane, and she is a hot mess of emotions. Greg defends Chance for leaving his family. After Greg and Tish argue, Greg apologizes. Tish and Greg arrive at the hospital and are greeted by Lomax, who has always been in contact with Tish without her knowing that he worked with her father. Tish goes to see her father, who is out cold. Tish goes to her father's place to stay. The housekeeper, Hernando, Pedro Gonzalez, takes the bags. Tish, Greg, and Lomax decide to have a drink. Lomax tells how Chance met Tish's mother. Madeline was terrified by the fires, and Lomax knew it. Shortly after Tish was born, Lomax had his accident. After that, Madeline couldn't stand Chance going to the fires. Lomax said they reconciled 5 or 6 times. Tish says Madeline is in love with Chance, and Lomax says Chance loves her as well. Lomax also says Chance has been following Tish as she grew up. Tish shows up at the Buckman Company and meets Irene. The guys are in the back shooting pool and putting. Tish says the doctor is going to keep Chance sedated. Greg gives Tish a tour of her father's office and all his exploits. Irene gets a call and there's a fire in Louisiana. Greg and Joe are going to handle the fire without Chance. Tish says she will go along. Everyone tells her no. They let her take the company plane to New Orleans, allegedly to see a friend. The guys take the helicopter to the fire. Tish greets her friend in New Orleans and then runs to get a rental car so she can go to the fire. She is escorted to the fire by a police motorcycle. Finally, she leaves the fire and heads back to the hotel where Greg and Joe are waiting. Despite what they want, she says she will stay. Greg and Tish seem to be hit by the lightning bolts of love. That night, explosions wake Tish. The oil fire can be seen in the distance. She drives out to the fire. Greg is upset that she is there in her PJs. Greg says they missed on the first try and will need to try again. Chance wakes up in the hospital and he and Lomax have hot words. Chance cools when he is told that Tish is outside. It is an awkward meeting. When Chance finds out she went to an oil fire with Greg, the man whore, Chance opens the door and punches Greg in the face.
Well, for starters, I went to a fire and...
You went to an oil fire?
Yes, I went to an oil fire with Greg.
Pardon me. Greg?
Yeah.
Hell? You took my daughter to an oil fire.
What's wrong with that?
What's wrong with it? I'll tell you what's wrong with it. Every time he takes a girl... Whenever he...
Put her away, Dad. We got married yesterday.
From the floor, Greg says they were married the day before. Tish tells her father that she can handle the fires. Chance is happy, and he gets to leave the hospital. Chance has been all day leaving messages for Lomax. He is upset that Madeline is flying in from Paris. Lomax has set up a dinner for the two couples. Both of the men are nervous. Madeline, Vera Miles, is very stiff. Madeline gigs Greg a bit.
I understand your first comment about me was that I had to be a complete bitch.
Well, I was kind of mad and excited.
Madeline says her daughter will not be able to take Greg going to fires. Madeline is still wearing her wedding ring. Chance starts to charm his wife. After dinner, they drive out to a house that Tish wants to buy. The car phone rings and it's Irene calling. The signal is garbled, so they have to go to Chance's and get the message that the fire is in Canada. Chance wants to take George along and leave Greg off the job. Tish says that Canada is the perfect place for a honeymoon. Chance asks Madeline if she will stay, and she says she will if he asks. Then she says, "Please don't ask." Wait, what? Tish looks at the men working on the Canadian fire, and she feels the pressure. Chance and Greg are working in the fire, while George and Joe are in the tractors. The control head starts rocking, and Chance kicks Greg out of the way. The tractor operators move the gear, and the fire sparks back up. Chance is trying to give Greg easier jobs, but he is resisting. When the nitro comes, Greg asks Tish to get way back. She is pushed out by her husband, and Chance is not sure that she should be there either. On the flight back, Greg has an issue with Chance trying to take care of his son-in-law. They have a nice blowout. When they get home, Lomax says Madeline thinks Tish is putting on an act about not being afraid Greg or her father will get hurt. Just then, another fire call comes in from Irene. The fire is a poison well fire in Malay, which we now know as Malaysia. Joe asks if Irene is going. Greg is pulled off the golf course where he is playing with Tish and Madeline. Tish hits a worm burner in the sand trap and her mother knows the truth. She doesn't rake the sand after she hits out. Bad form. Chance, Greg, Tish, Joe, George, and Irene travel to Malaysia. They are met by Amal, Valentin de Vargas. Amal says that they are gathering the equipment and 7 men are already dead. Tish opts out after dinner and the men are all going to Madame Lou's to gamble. Chance says the jungle location is too rough for Tish and she must stay in town. Madame Lou, Frances Fong, makes a big production about loving Chance, but it's most likely the money. A Balinese dancer named Gumdrop, BB Louise, runs off the stage when she sees Greg. Chance is shocked, but when Greg tells Gumdrop he is married now, she goes back to dancing. The men meet the drunken Australian crew that is working the well. Chance tells them that they shouldn't be drinking so heavy before work.
What do you fellas do back at the well?
Oh, early tomorrow morning, we're on day tower. Why?
Well, if you keep on that sauce, you won't be much use to me.
Mr. Berkman, we are gentlemen who pleasure ourselves in drinking as we see fit.
They have words and a real Donnybrook breaks out. The Americans win the fight because they are fatter and older. Chance will pay for the damages and everybody is happy. The poison fire is burning by a lake. They have a zone near the well where the workers must wear gas masks. Chance meets with the local crew and says the nitro can't come in over the road. They decide to have it flown in. They begin working and the helicopter comes in with the nitro. Tish is also on the helicopter. Chance and Greg are not happy. She says she is responsible for getting the nitro flown out there. Just then a jeep careens into the lake. The head Australian driller is dead and the safety zone has to be moved back. Tish says she was going back, but since Greg had not told her the truth about the poison, she is staying. They spend a few workdays pulling wreckage off the well. One day some metal falls and traps Greg in the lake. Chance has to run to hook on and save his son-in-law. Greg is running out of oxygen because his hose is cut. Chance almost buys it getting him out, as Tish watches in horror from a distance. The local doctor gives Greg oxygen and he is fine. Back in Texas, Chance is now a suited businessman. Greg is using a cane. Chance tells Greg he is going to dissolve the company and said he is joining Lomax Oil. He wants Greg to come with him. Tish won't tell Chance how she really feels. Chance gives Greg the company for free. Joe and the guys will stay with Greg to keep him safe. Greg begins fighting fires and Tish goes along. Chance is in a boardroom meeting with Lomax. Lipman, Big John Hamilton, John Wayne's restaurant friend that he put in the movies, discuss restroom colors. Soft willow green is preferred by all ages.
This soft willow green, gentlemen, is preferred by people of all ages, according to our survey. They find it soothing and restful. Yet the very chic women seem to prefer this lovely royal blue. However, research points out the strong psychological advantage to this color, which we'll call flaming heart red. It tends to make people spend less time in the restroom, drives them out for convenience to the next customer.
Greg does turn down some fires that are too tough. Chance goes to his apartment and Madeline is waiting inside.
Well, I'll be damned.
That's probably the most romantic greeting a woman ever received.
Madeline has sent Greg and Tish away so Chance and she can be alone. Greg, Tish, Joe, and George are in Venezuela at a fire. Madeline calls Tish to let her know that her parents are getting married. Guerrillas, not gorillas, have been shooting the water lines. The army has sent a colonel and his men to protect them. Right on cue, a guerrilla jeep rides through and shoots the place up. The guerrillas set more wells on fire. The next day, a general comes with the country's Secretary of the Interior and a U.S. State Department man. They explain that the wells must be put out to keep the Marxist revolution from spreading.
The clandestine guerrilla radio is boasting of what they accomplished last night and claim the fires will never be put out.
They'll turn it into a propaganda field day to sell their program of sabotage all over South America.
Oh, I won't even begin the operation if they're shooting at us.
3 more companies of men have been ordered here. We will blanket the area with troops if necessary, senor.
I've been authorized by the State Department to offer every assistance. Now, anything you need will be made available.
The one thing I really need, you can't give me.
Greg says the end wells can be put out, but the 3 in the middle will have to be put out simultaneously. 3 more companies of infantry are brought in. Greg convinces Tish to go to the city. She flies to Houston to see her mother. Tish tells Madeline that Greg needs help from Chance. Madeline knows Chance will go, and she will not try to stop him. Madeline says she will ask Chance to help. Unknown to the ladies, the State Department has already contacted Chance, as has Greg. When Madeline gets back, Chance is already making plans to go to the fire. Chance asks her what this means for their relationship. Madeline doesn't know the answer, but she says she will be going to where Tish is staying. Chance arrives in Venezuela with the support of the U.S. Air Force. He is smiling and happy. Greg apologizes for what the fire is doing for his relationship with Madeline. The colonel promises to protect them.
This Colonel Valdez, Chance, he's in charge of keeping us from getting shot.
Well, I hope you do a good job, Colonel.
If I do not, you will have my profound apologies.
Chance says the nitro will have to go into the 3 center wells at the same time. Tish is freaking out, and Madeline is being stoic. Madeline says Lomax is a friend of the president and can get the 2 ladies into the fire area. The team practices while the locals unload the nitro. Chance gives them double time for their work. Some guerrilla snipers are on the hill, but they are scared off by an Army helicopter patrol. In the morning, they use nitro to blow the 2 end wells. The guerrillas are still hiding on the hill. It works, and they have 2 of the 5 fires out. They then start putting the control heads on. The guerrillas kill a guard and start shooting Chance and company. One of the fires is reset. Chance rides out on the control head. George is shot in the leg. The colonel guns the 2 guerrillas down from the helicopter. After they cap one well, Chance, Greg, and Joe go to see the colonel. They are expecting more trouble from the guerrillas. Greg orders the extra nitro buried. The colonel has more infantry brought in. The general, Madeline, Tish, and Lomax arrive by helicopter. Madeline is all in with staying at the fire. Chance and Madeline are left alone. She's on board now. Greg says Tish is going back, but Chance says Madeline is staying. Chance shows the plan to Lomax, and he says it's almost impossible. Lomax says they should walk away from this fire.
Tried 2, and you happen to come off lucky. Now you're tackling 3. All it takes is one oversensitive blasting cap booster, a loose piece of asbestos wrapping, or a hot spot burning through an insulated wire, and any one of those 3 drums can go off prematurely, or not at all.
Jack, believe me, it's our firm intention to double wrap the asbestos, to triple check the booster caps, and if the insulated wire does burn through, we'll sue the manufacturer.
You want to know the real reason I came down here? Was to tell you that this is one you ought to back away from.
Chance asks Lomax if he wants to push the plunger.
You want to know the real reason I'm glad you're here? So I could ask you if you wanted to handle this plunger.
The old man's eyes light up and he says he would like that very much.
I'd like that very much.
As they are moving in on the last 3 wells, the Army gets word that there is danger and takes Tish and Madeline inside. The nitro blows and all 5 wells are out. They begin putting the control heads on the last 3. An air raid siren goes off. The general tells Madeline that the radar has picked up guerrilla airplanes. 2 airplanes attack and are shot down by the Army. In spite of this, Chance et al. Gets the well capped. Madeline busts the chops of the general. The general is happy because 5 airplanes came over and only 2 made it to the oil field.
I am not overwrought. I'm just plain damn mad. How dare you risk the lives of men who come down here to help you?
They were in no danger, Senora.
No danger. One bullet. No. He knew the guerrillas had airplanes.
We didn't know, Senora. We suspected aircraft was made available to them from outside the country. So we took every precaution. 5 aircraft crossed our border, but only 2 reached the area.
Those are the 2 I'm talking about. You say something.
You're doing just fine, honey.
Chance and Madeline are happy, and so are Tish and Greg. The Buckman Company jet flies away. I'll be right back with conclusions and the world-famous short summary following a short word from our sponsor. Summary. Red Adair was the most famous oil well fighter and most knowledgeable until after the first U.S. Gulf War, codenamed Desert Storm, 1990-91. The retreating Iraqi army set fire to around 700 Kuwaiti oil wells. As a consequence, more was learned about extinguishing oil well fires than was previously known in the history of oil well drilling. It would seem that Adair was the first oil well firefighter. However, he and his crew worked for and learned from an older oil well fighter. Myron Mason Keeney was born in 1898 and, quote, developed many patents and designs for the tools and techniques of oil firefighting, unquote. Kinley's father Carl was a shooter, a job where wells are dynamited to increase flow. In 1913, Carl put out a large fire with a dynamite explosion. Myron helped with the fire and then went into business. He did well financially, but was injured a couple of times. He died in 1978. Oddly enough, Hellfighters 1968 was not the first oil well firefighting movie. In 1939, Edward G. Robinson, the original penultimate gangster in films, and Ruth Huzzy starred in Blackmail 1939. Robinson played a successful oil well firefighter. When he is shown in a newsreel, an ex-con comes and threatens to reveal that Robinson has escaped from a chain gang years before. The man steals Robinson's oil well and has him sent back to a prison farm. World famous short summary. The Duke demonstrates a dysfunctional relationship set against the backdrop of oil well fires. I hope you enjoyed today's show. You can find connections to social media and email on the site at classicmovierev.com or in the podcast show notes. If you enjoyed the show, go ahead and hit the subscribe button. If you've already subscribed, you can tell a friend, colleague, or family member about the show, or leave a review at Apple Podcasts. It really helps the show get found. If you want to comment, suggest a movie, or help out, contact me by email at jec@classicmovierev.com. Beware the Moors.